All right, good afternoon. So Matt Orcutt with Ingersoll Rand, and really pleased to have the opportunity to spend a little bit of time this afternoon sharing our journey around the strategic deployment of technologies to improve the customer experience. And really kind of building off what Ralph kind of introduced here, customer satisfaction is critical, and really the lens of this presentation and what I'm going to walk through is really looking forward at the customer, and how we look at that, how do we solve pain points for the customers, and we'll dive right in. So just a little background on Ingersoll Rand. I think most folks are familiar with the industrial side of Ingersoll Rand. Ingersoll Rand's very big in the compressor, the pump, and the power tool arena. But actually the largest part of Ingersoll Rand is in climate. It's actually the largest part of our revenue, and it's actually the part of the business that I'm part of. The climate business includes our commercial HVAC, residential HVAC, and then cooling for trailers. I'm part of our residential HVAC, so as we go through examples, I'll probably be leaning more on residential experiences as we go to channel partners. We also work together with our broader climate group as well, and I'll reflect on some broader actions there too. So agenda for this discussion, I'm going to kick off and really kind of take a step back and look at customer experience in this connected economy. I spent a little bit of time speaking about what this means and why it's important. And then we're going to go into the tools. Some of you may be familiar with customer journey maps. If not, we're going to go a little bit into the details about these tools, why they're really good in terms of how do you actually get a good understanding of what's happening with the customer and where you can drive actions. And then from a wrap-up perspective, try to bring it to life. Share how we at Ingersoll Rand have approached this journey. We're still pretty early in the journey, but again, share where we are, some of the learnings that we've had in this process, as well as some of the next steps. So when we look at customer experience in this connected economy, I think the first thing is to understand what is customer experience. We see a lot of it in the press, a lot of it in white papers. It's really about the ecosystem of experiences that someone has with your brand. It's important. If you look at surveys from CEOs and what they rank as important, they really view customer experience as a key brand differentiator. And the reason is it reflects more than just a single experience, but it's that whole entity of what the customer interacts with. And as you move into this and you start looking at core elements of what makes a great customer experience, for sure you've got to have a great product or a great service. And if we look at some research around where manufacturers are in this area, that journey of creating these connected or Internet of Things products, generally speaking, you've got this massive groundswell there. 80+% are either in that space or have the intentions to get into that. And again, you see that going. But the big thing, and I think we've heard this repeated many times over the last couple of days here, having it connected is interesting, but that doesn't create value. And again, you got to go back and pull back and look at where is value created in this equation. And it's really about how you connect with the customer. How do you create mutual value? Value that the customer can take to the bank, but also from a manufacturer perspective or service provider perspective, we got to get paid for these services too. This is an investment. This is opportunities to extract profit or revenue streams. So you've got to have that mutual win, and this is one of the challenges as we look at this space of bringing these together. And again, you see a lot of flurry, and you see a lot of this connected products, and it seems like you can connect just about anything today. But I think the key thing to recognize is, what do customers expect? As you have greater transparency of information, customers expect more. Individually as consumers, we expect more from companies we do business with, and you can look at it from a business-to-business standpoint. We expect something in return for this sharing of information, and that's a key thing to take away with as we look at solutions in this space. So as we dive into looking at some of the challenges around here and looking at some of the forces at play, one of the challenges specifically within Ingersoll Rand that we have, and we still struggle in this space, is connecting the various technologies and systems in the business. How do we connect that and then make sure that we're actually delivering value to the customer? Customers don't like to provide redundant information in multiple systems. We have that today where they may go into a warranty system that's disconnected from another system, and they're providing similar information. And the challenge with that approach is it's frustrating. And you go back to the customer satisfaction piece and you know, how do you earn share, win share? You've got to have really clean processes. You've got to look at that, those touch points across the board. And as you look at the convergence here in these pillars around the customer experience, there's, you know, we've looked at, there's about six areas where really customer experience is built from. And again, you tackle them, you know, individually, you know, based on where your business opportunities exist. One of the ones that's pretty interesting, and we look at where convergence of technology is happening and where it's actually impacting on the customer experience side is omni-channel. You look at the purchase cycle. You know, how are customers and even as you as consumers, how do you transact business? And you look at some of the convergence around artificial intelligence and omni-channel. And I think one of the great examples that we've seen just recently in this space is the Amazon Echo. You've probably seen the ads on TV in that space there, and it's an example. And yes, it's a consumer example, but these things proliferate over, and they'll be into the B2B channels, and you know, it's opportunities. Maybe there's something in the space that we have to go after, but you begin to look at all these digital forces at play. You got to pick them, but understand where is that richness, where do they connect with the different pillars, and where does the profit opportunities reside in this. And I think the clear thing as you walk through this is, you know, things are changing. You know, Ralph got up and kind of shared this kind of current state and, you know, future state of where things are going. This is a paradigm shift here. And if we look at this paradigm shift that's happening in this space, you know, this model, this reactive model of customer service and just being responsive to customers, frankly, it doesn't go very far anymore. You know, that's almost like a table stake or an expectation in the equation. And I'll share a specific example within the residential HVAC business of where we see this space going. And again, it's still early, but I think it's relevant to looking at the shift here. You know, it was probably 2 months ago. We had a homeowner that reached out to their installing dealer. And they'd reached out and indicate that their system was not working properly because they'd just gotten home from work and the temperature in their home was different than what they had set the thermostat at. So, you know, previous world example, what would happen? You know, the dealer would have dispatched a truck out to the home, would have gone through the typical diagnostics. You know, it's a model that has a lot of cost, a lot of inefficiencies, homeowners' inconvenience in that process. Today, and in this specific example, that home was equipped with our Nexia product. Nexia is a remote home management technology that's actually done through the thermostat. So that dealer remotely pulled the data from the thermostat, saw that the home had a power outage, power had just been restored, and the unit was working fine. It was just, you know, catching back up to being off power for a few hours. So again, you look at that experience, and again, just one simple example of where diagnostics data goes. And again, that one, you know, is a value add for both with a homeowner. You know, they got the comfort that the system's working fine, and the dealer builds that relationship and the trust with the homeowner that they certainly look at for recurring business. And we even take that one step further around diagnostics with air codes. You know, when you look at you know, being in a home, you're like, you don't want to have you know, be without air conditioning or heating for days. So even with the technology and the thermostats today, we're able to have a reasonable amount of accuracy what's actually wrong if there's an error code generated from the thermostat. So when that truck shows up, they can have the part right there and ready. So they're not going back and forth and you're waiting days or hours to get a unit fixed. And again, this is the expectations, that rising level of expectations that customers look for, you know, not just in a B2C space, but certainly in B2B as well. It's real time, it's instant, and they're looking for that compressed cycle time that they've come to expect now. So one of the things in this area gets around, you know, how do you understand what the customer is looking for? You know, what are the tools that you can use to really help understand and get a better understanding of what's going on with the customer? One of the areas that we've landed on, and we've been using this across Ingersoll Rand, and this is pretty broad. You look at across many industries, and I've been in some other forums. Customer journey maps are gaining a lot of traction. And if you used them, I think you probably appreciate that. But really, this is really about standard work and customer understanding. And what that really means is, you know, taking the step back, and it's not saying what the customer experience should be or what the process should be. It's actually sitting down with the customers that you do business with and mapping out what they see. Because there's differences. I mean, in different, you know, roles in a company, you may expect that certain things are being followed, but that isn't necessarily always the case. And as you get yourself grounded in data, and I think you probably heard Paul this morning speak a little bit about some of the focus that Ingersoll Rand has on data. This is about taking out all the bias from the equation and getting yourself grounded in facts and figures around what that customer experience really is, having a full 360-degree visual of what's happening, where are those pain points, because again, we don't go through the effort of journey mapping to have a pretty illustration of what we need to go after. It's about applying our lean and our operational excellence tools and determining where are their pain points in that journey and where are their unmet needs that the customer has been communicating or lies between the lines. And that's the purpose of this. And that's really, as we walk through this, where we spend a lot of our time and energy. So when we look at journey maps, and the first thing is, where in the heck do you start? Because there's a lot of areas you could kind of go down some rabbit trails with there. The place you start is personas. You have to determine who your customer is. And within Ingersoll Rand, and we did this across all of our climate businesses, so commercial, residential, and even our parts business. And we really broke down and looked at who are the specific users of our technologies, of our services and products. And we got granular really quick. And the reason for that is that's the level you have to be at to truly do the walk, to truly understand what pain points are out there, and frankly, to get that kind of day in the life approach and mentality of the experience. And as we go through that mapping, what we begin to see are pain points, areas that we are not easy to do business with, points of frustration, points of where we may not have the best clarity. And what we do is we get a prioritization around that. Because again, you may get half a dozen or dozen pain points. Again, you can't really act on that. Then you got to get a sense of where is that pain point. Is that an area that's actually where we could potentially lose a customer? And you begin to go through that process here. And as you walk through this and you get a really good understanding of who the customer is and what that journey looks like, that really helps us get down to this notion of segment of one. We'll talk a little more about that later on in this presentation, but catered approaches to customers. There's a lot of information, we got a lot of insights on customers. How are we using that to catered solutions to that specific customer? So as we dive into journey maps, and again, this is a simple illustration. It's not an exact one of what we do at Ingersoll Rand, but just to show a framework of how you can potentially approach it. This is specifically looking at a purchase cycle, a pre-purchase, purchase, post-purchase model. My recommendation on this is I think it's a good place to start, and then from there you can go a mile deep in certain areas. We've gone a mile deep like in a returns area to really understand pain points in a product return or product defect area. But to get there, you don't want to jump to the conclusion that you have a pain point. The first thing that we certainly see is take the step back, walk the steps through kind of that pre-purchase. How are they finding your products? How are they engaging? How are they learning? What materials are they using to help generate the purchase and the requirements? And then you get into the purchase cycle, all the way through to whether they're calling up an order management team or logging into a portal, really understanding all of those processes through, all the way through invoicing. And then you get into post-purchase, the support, the technical help, those types of questions. You want to map all that out. And again, what's that map? You get a better picture of what's happening. And within Ingersoll Rand, you've got a lot of complexity in how we go to market. And one of the things that we quickly found as we navigate this is we have multiple layers on a journey map. So you think about multi-step distribution. We go through distribution partners. We have independent dealers that we sell through. We've got homeowners that are sitting distant in some cases, or property managers in other areas. And you've got to look at them all. You can't just say, hey, I'm just going to focus on end user, or I'm just going to focus on a channel partner. We talk about this holistic 360 view. You really got to take it all the way around, because otherwise it's going to be difficult to have a good, clear picture of where you want to prioritize next steps and actions. So as we go through this, and one of the key things to point out with these journey maps, what are you trying to get out of it? We talked about pain points and unmet needs. You're also looking for these moments of truth. This is kind of those key inflection points in the process around, hey, if we fail here, this is a pretty big deal. And as we go through that process, what it also helps us look at is, do we have the right business metrics from a day-to-day, on our MDI boards and weekly, monthly metrics? Are we tracking the right stuff? And again, as we went through this process, we found things that we tracked that were, relevant. We also found areas that we didn't have a great pulse on that key moment of truth. So as you go through this process, it also opens the lenses of, what are those business metrics that need to be tracked to make sure you've got a good, consistent pulse on the customer there. So we go through this process, and again, it helps set some focus around where to go. We go through journey maps and this exercise. Our outputs when we do this, it's about winning. It's about finding ways to drive growth and drive share. And as we go through this, and one of the things to highlight here is we talked about these digital forces earlier, a lot of the different kind of actions that's going out there. But one of the call out, when you take the digital forces that are at play and you kind of converge it with this journey map and across these different points of the purchase cycle, this is where you begin to get some interesting solutions. And I'm not going to go through all the ones that we have listed here, but just wanted to highlight two to kind of give an illustration of what this really means. And you take the first example around big data, and we've heard a lot of discussions about all the different ways to collect data and what to do. But when you take big data and you apply it to a part of the journey and take it to the pre-purchase cycle, and you look at search, how are customers searching your information? Understanding what content they're looking at or not looking at really sets the stage for action. Where is there stuff that's sticky? What do you need to do to actually get more engagement with your customers earlier in that purchase cycle? And that's an area where big data can certainly play a role. It also helps on the target marketing side as well to make sure that you're using your resources appropriately to hit the right targets. The other one to talk about there is around purchase. And just as an example, we talk about social. Social media and the impact on the purchase cycle. And this kind of goes back to that earlier comment around segment of one. As we get smarter and we use this information and data, it does enable us to have tailored offerings. Again, we go back, what are customers? They want to feel special. They want to feel like they've gotten a very specific offer and something that's relevant for them. And that's where you take social and data, and you can really get down to these segments of one. And then even in the social space on collaboration, you look at ratings, reviews, but even in this kind of industrial space of blogs, we see the increasing use of blogs by technicians and contractors and others to share information about products. Could be true, could be false, but again, how is that being used? Because it's certainly part of the process. Question is, are we actually leveraging it to the extent that we can do something with it to influence demand and share? So switch gears just a little bit here and kind of take how we've applied this at Ingersoll Rand. So we call this one customer experience, and it's really the name of where we landed after kind of talking about a problem. Our problem on the commercial side of our business and the residential side and our parts side is we have similar customers. We have customers that require all three of these products from us, but yet we operate as individual strategic business units. In some cases, that may mean that we're in the same building separated by a physical wall, and we don't talk to each other. And you start looking at this and you go, all right, so what does that mean? It comes back to the customer's experience. We did not have a unified customer experience for within our climate group. And as we approached this, we really went down this journey to go, how do we want to go out and solve it? So we'll get into a little more color around here, and the intent of this is really a strategic framework. It's an illustration. Behind this would be the actions that we develop as a business to go out and prioritize and act out. How do we get that one unified experience for our customer? Because again, we go back, what is that customer looking for? They're looking for something that's easy, frictionless. And we certainly, as we went through our journey maps, found that we weren't always that way. We got pain points there. So we go through this and we talk about building the model. How are we going to tackle this? The first is around employee engagement and culture. So if we look at how do we drive change, I'm a firm believer that if you don't have their people engaged out of the gate, it doesn't matter any of this other stuff, it just won't happen. So we've got a lot of focus around engagement. How do we engage our people and employees? Next is really around data. We talk about master data management, knowledge management. It's not novel, but within Ingersoll Rand specifically, we looked at, hey, we got a lot of different silos of information, and we needed to get cut to the chase. It's about accessibility of information and accuracy of information. And that's foundational because that's going to feed a lot of the different areas that we have here. And then as we go across, we had 5 pillars around how do we drive standard work and consistency in our sales processes. We go across the digital experiences, our contact centers, getting into our voice of customer, how do we have consistent voice of customer insights, and then the connected products here. So as we went through this process, and just to kind of capture some of the lessons learned that we've had, again, we're still learning, so don't take it as we're done here, because we're still very much early in the game. But it really starts with having an empowered customer. And when you empower the customer, you get better insight and intelligence. And as you continue to map through these learnings here, this is about cascading and growing, and taking those learnings and then reapplying it back to the journey maps to, one, make sure, are we actually driving the intended changes that we had intended? And then are we able to predict new needs? Because again, we're very focused on lean and continuous improvement. So again, this is a journey. So we keep looking for ways that we need to drive improvements on. And that continues to map us through around some of the improvements in processes. I'll pause on the governance piece, because this is a big one for us, and we spend a lot of time focusing on governance and what that means. And governance for us is, how do you get the leadership, the presidents of the 3 business units that we're working on here, aligned and engaged? And how do you have consistency in decision making and a framework that empowers the folks? So we've set up a pretty big cadence around this. And the reason is we have to make sure that what we do in this space is sustainable. So again, key learning that we've applied and certainly want to share with you all on journeys like this is, do you have a good governance? So just to kind of wrap up, talk about next steps. Again, this is really kind of more zoomed in of where we are in this journey today. We've focused really big right now on mobility. A lot of reasons, I won't go into all that here, but a lot of acceleration on mobility. We found ways to bring consistencies of experience and merge different business units through mobile applications a whole heck of a lot easier than trying to tackle it in other solutions. Then we also look at our multi-generational product plan for mobile. When you get into this space, you can't just, it's not a one and done approach. It's also about having that roadmap for change, not just this year, but for the next 3 to 5 years. We got a lot of focus on sales excellence, execution. How do we get consistency in that? How do we look at our pipeline sales funnel and driving improvements on that front? We're going through some technology scenario mapping, really looking at, on a journey like this, you've got to figure out which technologies you're going to sequence and what that looks like. And then we're looking at the infrastructure support, and then the economics and justification. That's a big one for us. This is not cheap investments by any means, and as we go down this pathway, the areas that we've leaned on is really been focused on cost to serve models. Where do we drive productivity and cost to serve? And then revenue augmentation. How do we find ways to mix demand up, which is incremental profit, or look for share of wallet plays with customers. But again, the reason we go after those two is because they're pure. They're tangible, and we can have very strong accountabilities on that. Because again, when you get into this type of investment, this type of transformational change, there's got to be a lot of accountability, and we got to deliver the results. So those are the 2 areas that we've focused as a business on. So again, still early. Our journey is hopefully to get to that frictionless experience. We recognize that if we can do that, that really positions us for some pretty good change out there. So appreciate the time and opportunity to speak with you all.